Hello, my name is Mary Johnson Davis. I bring you greetings from Jackson, Mississippi. Welcome to my Interpersonal Communication Project, Human Services 508, Liberty University. Next slide. Communication is described by Stewart as the continuous, complex, collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal meaning making. It's an age-old process. Each and every one of us participate in this process from the moment we enter into the world until the day we leave. Next slide. Interpersonal communication is a subset of the communication process. It includes collaboration, choices, culture, identities, conversation, and nexting. Next slide. Communication is collaborative because we don't do it alone. The fact that it's not just ideas and words, but also intonations, facial expressions, eye contact, touch, and other nonverbal elements is what makes collaboration complex. The most important function of communication is getting your ideas across. Not just putting your ideas into words, but making sure that the receiver interprets the message. Next slide. Choices. All communication involves choices, most of which involve ethical standards and commitments. Some choices are culturally influenced. Culture. What people say and how others respond. Ethnicity, gender, age, social class, sexual orientation, and other cultural features always affect and are affected by communication. Next slide. Our communication involves constructing identities. Identity negotiations are always going on. Who we are is built on our communicating, and our self is built through our interactions. Next slide. Most influential communication event which makes us unique and occupies a large part of our personal and occupational lives is conversation. Conversation is the fundamental side of language use, and it is the most common and everyday kind of communication. Next slide. Next is responding fruitfully to what just happened. No matter what happened, you always have an option to try a next step. Your communication move can change. Your next communication move can change the situation, or at least keep the conversation going. Next is the most important conversation skill. Next slide. Overarching goal. My overarching goal is to be a divinely inspired Christian counselor who has a non-wavering heart for God's people, especially the youth and senior citizens. I believe God is calling me to be a vessel in order to produce change in the lives of His people. I will therefore be guided by the foundational principles that God has provided in His Word. I will equip myself with biblical truth, which will allow me to minister to hurting persons and help them move to a personal wholeness, interpersonal competence, mental stability, and spiritual maturity. I hope to develop this overarching goal through personal knowledge of the scriptures, both Old and New Testament. I will seek all ways to develop my communication skills so that I will become a more effective listener, free of criticism and judgment. Next slide. Enlarging our conversation. We communicate with others on a daily basis. Sound and true interpersonal communication requires practice. In order for me to effectively enlarge my conversation, I must know myself, my needs, my own weaknesses, and then seek ways to improve. The more I develop my communication skills, the more my conversations will be enlarged. According to Carbonell, enlarging the conversation refers to the development of skills which enhance the quality of our communication. For me, this means overcoming certain barriers that hinder me from being an effective listener. Next slide. Enlarging my conversation means develop a winning Christ-like personality to improve my effectiveness as a servant to God's people. It also means making a personal decision to have a mental and spiritual makeover by taking the action needed to become a better me. By expanding my ability to communicate in my interpersonal dialogue, asking questions, gaining clarity on issues, listening, and comprehending, I will be able to overcome doubts and obstacles and visualize what I can become. Next slide. Also, by accepting the way God made me and my personality, I will know and recognize my strengths and uniqueness, and I will try to emulate the good traits of the DISC personality type. Dr. Carpenter said that everyone is a blend of the DISC behavior. Behavior blends consist of the combination of 4 basic personality types that people tend to identify with. The 4 DISC types are D behaviors, which are motivated by challenge; I behaviors, which are motivated by recognition and need prestige; S behaviors thrive on security; and C behaviors are motivated by quality. Next slide. Understanding this model has helped me to see the value of profiling people. No one personality type is better than another. However, it is important to be able to accept the unique behavior type of others in order to understand and help heal hurts. According to the Euclid Me assessment, I am this personality type S on graph 1, which is what people expect of me; SC or CS on graph 2, which is me. It's not necessary for me to lead. I am happy to follow, but I'll only be led wrong once. Next slide. I'm motivated by quality and security. I am the type of friend who knows when to step back, and the idea of self-awareness and self-disclosure has been an eye-opener for me during this course, allowing me to see the importance of knowing myself. Next slide. According to Stewart, first impressions are lasting impressions, as people are reluctant to change their first impression. I'm called on for many things: wife, mother, choir member, former soldier, child of God. Some of the rejections I've encountered in my life have been instrumental in who I am today. Many of the rules that I've had to govern myself by have caused me to subconsciously alienate myself from others, from family, neighbors, and church members. Next slide. Potential listening barriers are those that hinder communication. One such barrier for me is the tendency to form my own opinion before hearing what the listener has to say. Another barrier that hinders me from being an effective listener is half listening, or wishing the other person will hurry up and finish talking so that I can say what's on my mind before I forget it. Next slide. Some others include trying to finish the speaker's sentence, being too quick to take offense when I'm wrongly accused, dodging individuals who never let you get a word in edgewise. Next slide. External and internal noise pollutions are noises that are annoying, distracting, or harmful to others. External noises are those outside of us which distract us from communicating effectively, and they include noises such as traffic, machines, clocks ticking, refrigerator humming. Internal noises are those inside of us that distract us from communicating, and they include personal beliefs, stereotypes, daydreaming, rehearsing what to say next, and identifying with everything that the talker has to say. Next slide. Some solutions to noise pollution include: reduce the physical noise. Hear more than the talker's words. Notice their facial expressions, their coloring, as well as the pitch of their voice. Create barriers that decrease the loudness of external noise pollutions. And be fair and honest to the speaker. Next slide. I'm training my plan of action. I'm training myself to recognize when people are simply in need of someone to listen to them. I'm learning to breathe during conversations where I'm constantly interrupted, making it not about me. Before I become offensive, I've started asking relevant questions in order to change the direction of the conversation. Next slide. I'll strive to become more adept at being an emphatic listener. I'm opening myself up to exploring those ideas that I've avoided so that I can identify and alter behavior which has caused relationship problems in my life. I will listen attentively while non-verbally stroking the speaker in a positive way in order to not turn them off. Next slide. I'll develop my listening skills and in a manner that will allow me to take charge of situations and influence the outcome. I will not listen with a closed mind, and I will acknowledge that with God all things are possible. There's nothing too hard for Him. Therefore, I will allow myself to be guided by Him when I come to the presence of His people. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to share with you. Goodbye. Over there.